Thanks to Charania, we have more details now about exactly what the Miami Heat are offering for guard Dame Lillard. We're going to talk about that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm one of the hosts here, Haize, holding it down on the afternoon episode today. And we got an update from Charania, who was actually being interviewed by The Daily, talking about the whole situation with Dame Lillard and the Miami Heat, and even a little bit about the NBA sending out that memo, and just kind of, reiterating what we talked about on yesterday's video when I dropped the morning video kind of on this topic. But now we kind of have more details on exactly what the Miami Heat are looking to offer for Dame Lillard. We're actually going to play the clip now, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Essentially, this was a warning given to players, other agents around the league, that you can't just publicly come out and say you want to get traded to a specific team or refuse to potentially play for other teams. People with knowledge of the situation, even people in Portland, they understand there is no shift in Lillard's mindset, his ultimate goal of playing in Miami. And no question, this is something we all have to monitor, especially after the memo given on Friday to NBA teams. But at this point, it's on Portland to find a deal with Lillard. This is a guy that's played 11 seasons there, arguably the best player in franchise history. He's been loyal there for years. And Joe Cronin, the GM there, he came out publicly and said he will work to find a deal. And I'm told that he have been preparing a trade package around 3 to 4 first-round draft picks, potential draft swaps, as well as second-round picks, a young player potentially. We see right there what a framework of a deal could look like if Portland decides to go down this path in Miami. Will that be good enough? Can they get better? Is there a team out there that's willing to take on Damian Lillard without really knowing whether he wants to play for them?
Okay, so, Sham's really laying out the fact that it's several first-round picks, several pick swaps, second-round picks, a young player, which is probably Nikola Jovic, I would guess, right? Assume, and Tyler Hero going out to a third team, because it seems like the Portland Trailblazers are just not interested in acquiring Tyler Hero. And so when you look at the deal and kind of the format of that deal and what it's bringing, it's a pretty solid deal for what they're going to get for Dame Lillard's preferred destination. And even Sham saying that, everyone has kind of gotten to the point of accepting that is where Dame is most likely to go. Now, he did talk about that there are maybe other teams that are kind of a little bit hesitant to get involved in that type of trade talk just because of, everything, surrounding the fact of Dame and what his agent and Dame have said to teams before, even after the NBA memo. Teams are not going to forget what was said by Dame's agent and Dame himself, right? So while, the NBA can send out a memo and say don't try to, preclude anyone from being able to trade for you in those talks, and don't try to guide people away from doing that, the damage may have already been done for that. And so the Portland Trailblazers are sitting in a interesting spot where they have to wonder, like, all right, can we put more pressure on the Miami Heat by waiting a little bit longer? But at the same time, like, how does it benefit the Portland Trailblazers? On yesterday's episode, I talked about how it would benefit the Miami Heat to get this done deal now, while there still are free agents out there that would absolutely accept veteran minimum contracts just to come play with Bam, Dame, and Jimmy. But when you look at as well, how does that benefit the Portland Trailblazers? It kind of eliminates something for them. They can go ahead and go fully forward into their rebuild, because it's not like if Dame is on their roster, they're not going to play him, right? I guess they could maybe John Wall him, which the Houston Rockets did with John Wall a few years ago, but it's not like Dame is a player who's not ready to contribute. It's not like he's still not a leader. And then at that point, would you be doing more damage to the appearance of your organization, right, and how your organization is viewed by treating Dame that bad on his way out? So the Portland Trailblazers don't sit in an envious position at all, right? When you look at what they have to do, moving on from their star, and this just goes back to kind of what I've been saying for a while now, actually years now, probably more like a year and a half. The Trailblazers should have moved on from Dame. They just should have. They should have moved on from Dame before now. I understand now that they got Scoot Henderson, the heir apparent for Dame Lillard's position, it makes sense to now go ahead and move him. But, they could have avoided this headache by not holding on to him, or, maybe even deciding to move the draft pick and seeing what they could have gotten. But I think that this is the best situation for the Portland Trailblazers. Move forward with Scoot. Anthony Simons, if they keep him, Shaedon Sharpe, what they have. Like, they have a lot of promising young players down there that I ultimately really like for that roster. and that can develop over there. With Portland not being a team that's ever going to be and never really has been a huge free agent destination, they're going to have to do what they're going to have to do. And so, hearing that now that this package that the Miami Heat are prepared to offer for Dame, I don't necessarily see that the Miami Heat being able to get much better out of that, right? You can only get so much. The Miami Heat, they've lost so many of their depth pieces that they are just stuck with what they have. Could you try to get a Duncan Robinson out of it? I guess, but does he do anything more for you than what other teams have, right? You look at Orlando Robinson as a young player there. Maybe that's a young player that you want. I still think Nikola Jovic is probably a young player that Shams is talking about in that deal. But that was the Miami Heat. I'm wrong on that one. Believe me, the Portland Trailblazers. We'll see. But I don't know. And the Miami Heat also sitting in a situation where if they get Dame, they're gonna be competing right away. And so you don't want to give up too much, right? And giving up on Orlando Robinson like that or Nikola Jovic, a player like that, that's kind of different. Those are players that really you haven't used in Nikola Jovic very much. Orlando Robinson is just coming in. You have Bam there. You still have Thomas Bryant, so you can go ahead and let him go and figure out things in the future. Caleb Martin isn't a team that I think really kind of moves the needle on that deal either. So I do think that if what Shams is reporting is the actual deal that the Miami Heat have offered, you're really not getting that much better out of the Miami Heat. You're just not. It's not there. I guess also, looking at the Tyler Hero going to that third team, what is that third team sending Portland in response to that? That's another little aspect of it. Can they get another pick out of it or something like that? Maybe another pick swap in the future, something like that. So, it kind of is what it is. If the Miami Heat are going to be the destination that Dame goes to, which everything seems to be pointing towards, that's the best offer that the Miami Heat can make, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll see if anything kind of budges, if maybe the third team that gets involved, makes it a little bit more interesting. But then you kind of have to pivot and look towards, all right, what at that point then, where does that put the Miami Heat, right, in the Eastern Conference, if that's the deal that goes through? And you got to look at it, right? You still have, I would say, I don't know if that throws them above Boston or the Milwaukee Bucks, at least not on paper. Don't get me wrong, we've seen the Miami Heat play better than both those teams in the playoffs, so you expect that to go on, but there's going to be a learning curve there. I would probably say that, especially with the uncertainty around James Harden, that absolutely thrusts them above a team like the Philadelphia 76ers, maybe the Cleveland Cavaliers as well. But with how young that team is and how they can make progression over the offseason, I don't know for sure, but it definitely propels the Miami Heat for a team that was in the play-in last season as the 8th seed. They're probably going to be one of the top 4 seeds fighting for one of those spots, maybe 5th at the absolute worst, depending on when it goes down, how long it takes them to gel, things like that. So, it's an important deal for the Miami Heat to get done. And like I said, because then they can offer veteran minimum contracts to some of the players waiting out in the wings for deals. They can try to solidify that bench quicker, sooner rather than later as well. So, you have to look at that. And I think the Miami Heat, they're doing what they can. It's not their fault that Dame has made it clear that he's the only team that they want to go to. So, I don't think that they are offering less of a package just because they know Dame wants to come here. I think they're offering what they can. And I know not everyone's going to share that opinion. I'm sure absolutely some people are going to say, come on, Haize. They're absolutely undercutting the Portland Trailblazers here. But I just don't see it that way personally. But you guys can let me know what you think on that down below. Now, before I go, I also want to talk about this recent quote from Kyrie Irving. So if you guys didn't see it, if you guys aren't on Twitter very much or on social media, or X, I guess is now what it's called, a Twitter page called B-Ball Forever tweeted out a graphic of Kyrie since leaving LeBron. And so, it's kind of mind-opening to see just exactly how it's been. So you got to look at it. This goes all the way back to 2018 where he missed the playoffs because of injury. I think it was because of injury. And then they lost to the Bucks. And then after that, he missed the playoffs again in 2020. And then they got eliminated again early in 2021. And then, since 2018, Kyrie Irving has not had a very good playoff history. He just hasn't. It is what it is there. Now, that's not all on him. And I think we are getting to a place where in sports in general, everybody's kind of judging everything off how many rings do you have, how many titles, how many conference finals did you get to, when really that's a team aspect, right? But that's not to say that Kyrie hasn't had his own turmoil around him in that time, because he absolutely has. And I don't know too many people who would say that he didn't, that he hasn't, right? But Kyrie saw this. He actually retweeted it and said, hey, pin this tweet and see what happens the next few years. Again, we know that Kyrie Irving is somebody who he pays attention to everything, and he does take things as slights. Now, he could be a bit of a space cadet at times with some of the things that he says and some of his mindset on things, but I think he sends a clear message that his expectation is to be better. And I think when you look at the Dallas Mavericks and how they have rebuilt that bench on the fly, and I've said they've done a pretty damn good job at it, in my opinion. I like what the Dallas Mavericks have done this offseason, considering coming into the season, I didn't think they'd be able to do nearly half of what they did in free agency this year. When you look at their starting lineup now, Luka, Kyrie, Tim Hardaway Jr., Grant Williams down, Dwight Powell coming in there. They also have Rashawn Holmes, still Derek Lively, their rookie draft pick that they got that I like a lot for them. Dante Exum they brought in, Seth Curry that they brought in as well. So I like what the Dallas Mavericks have built on the fly here. And I think that Kyrie is right to say, to respond to some of the criticism, but it all comes down to you have to figure it out. And the biggest thing with the Dallas Mavericks and Kyrie Irving is, who is going to sacrifice part of their game to help the other one succeed, or are they both going to sacrifice to help the team succeed overall? And I've said it before, this is the last-ditch effort, in a way, of Luka proving that he can play with another star, right? Luka is a great player. I love Luka. I like his game a lot, but he is a difficult player to play with for some people. And I think unless you have somebody that kind of comes up and that you draft and that grows over that time and then, kind of just naturally fits into kind of being more of a secondary role to Luka, it's going to be hard to get a player in free agency that's going to be able to play next to Luka Doncic. That Kyrie and Luka, for the benefit of both of them and their playoff success, they need to figure it out. And we talked about a little bit before with Steve-O is that when you look at Nikola Jokic, right, and the fact that he had that label on him, you won a lot of games, you won an MVP, but you haven't been able to get over the hump. One of the next players that you have to look at, yes, Joel Embiid and other players as well, but one of the next players that's on that list now that people are going to start looking at and saying, you need to get over that hump and judging them by that is Luka Doncic and maybe even Kyrie a little bit as well, considering he hasn't really done much postseason-wise since he stopped playing with LeBron James. So, that I think that's an interesting piece to talk about, and I do think that in the Western Conference, the Dallas Mavericks are going to be a hugely interesting team to see how does this all balance out, right? And we'll end up seeing that. But that's it. That's my time. You guys can let me know what you think on everything down below. Make sure you're following the show at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag episode, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything NBA and basketball related. And we'll see you guys the next time I feel like making a video. Probably tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.